Hello everyone, welcome to another installment of 50 facts about a Tony Hawk's game. So far we've done Thug and Thug 2 and Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3. And we carry on these in no particular order by looking at Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 this time around. Be sure to stick around to the end of the video as the facts get more interesting as the video goes on. Okay, number 1. If you go to the secret area on Skate Heaven, you'll see these half pipes. This setup is actually taken from the movie The Search for Animal Chin. But I did mention this in my Thug 2 video, as the same half pipes appear on the triangle level on that game too. So here's a bonus fact. If you use the skip to restart cheat and look at the restart points, we can see that the secret area is actually referred to as Enema Island. And if you don't know what an enema is, maybe you've heard of a colonic instead, which is a similar procedure. I have no idea why it's called this. You can also see the references to Animal Chin in the skip to restart menu as well. On School 2 there's a gap called TC's Roof, which involves jumping between these two buildings. Naturally, I always do a kickflip here, as that's what I got used to doing during career mode goals. Anyone else the same? Anyway, TC actually stands for Team Chicken, which is a nickname for one of the developers, Chris Rausch. Throughout the series there have been other gaps named TC's something or other. I'm sure we'll cover them all at some point. Have you ever wondered where the helicopters go on the Hangar and the Bullring? Using the jetpack cheat, let's see if we can find out. Let's take a look at the Hangar first. Sadly, if you follow it into the air, it seems to disappear not too long after it took off. On the Bullring, it's harder to follow because it flies off so fast. Again, it looks like it just disappears, which is a shame, because you hear a sound effect of it supposedly crashing into something, which doesn't actually seem to happen. On career mode at the Bullring, some of the bullcraps have money in them, but how do you know which ones contain dollars and which don't? Well, if you look closely, the poo that contains money is a richer shade of green, and the others are more brown. On Skate Heaven, there's this area which is called Wallows. You can see the name Wallows on the ground and also in the skip to restart menu. This area was actually reused on Tony Hawk's Underground. It was added to the Hawaii level and still retained the name Wallows. Here's one you may know already, but there's a secret area on Venice which is accessible in several different ways. Don't worry, that's not the fact. You can go up and over this quarter pipe, and you can also drop down from the roof. However, did you know that there's also this little path that goes around the exterior of the level? You never really see this used on speedruns or long plays, probably because it's just not that fast. Another fact about Venice is that on this section of the level here, you can see the website venicebeach.com advertised. The game was released in the year 2000, and 23 years later, this website still exists. However, here's what it looked like back in 2000, where the domain was written in Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2. Ollie the Magic Bum is a goal in career mode on Tony Hawk's 2. One thing that always puzzled me was that when the Magic Bum character became playable in Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3, he was given the name Ollie the Magic Bum. But hang on a second, the goal on Tony Hawk's 2 is telling you what you need to do to complete it. You need to ollie over the Magic Bum. Therefore, the Magic Bum is the guy's name, but on Tony Hawk's 3, Ollie became his name. It's a bit of a conundrum. The skate park scene on Philly is a real-life place named the FDR Skate Park. And on Bam Margera's movie on the sequel, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3, you can actually see some footage of him skating at the real-life FDR skate park. Sticking with the FDR skate park, the game's developers added their own little bit of graffiti to it. You can see a Neversoft logo here, which I doubt existed in real life. Hey, I might be wrong though, this might be accurate. As always, there are some pre-made parks in the Creator Park section of the game. These were all made by the game's devs, but who made each one? Well, there's a clue here. There's one called DDT. As we've seen on previous videos, DDT actually went on to be used as a code that, when entered as a custom character's name, changes your character into a Neversoft developer. The problem is that the name DDT went on to refer to two different devs. It referred to Bo Hunter on Tony 3, and on Thug 1 it referred to Darren Thorne. I can't see Bo Hunter in the credits for Tony 2, so let's go with Darren Thorne. There's another created part called Fong's Basement. This likely refers to Edwin Fong, who worked as a 3D environment artist for the game. However, we don't know if this was made by him or another dev mocking him. Well, actually, you know what? If I had a basement like this, it would be amazing. Did you know that you can actually start a new combo after time has elapsed on career mode? This can come in handy if you still need one of the score goals at the end of your run. How it works is that when the timer goes down to 0, your skater will come to a stop. During that motion, if you can manage to interact with an object, like going into a grind, you can actually start a new combo. Also on Venice, there's actually a small section of Venice Beach that you can skate on. Usually this area is all considered out of bounds. I mean, like, how do you skate on sand, right? Well, you can actually land and skate in these small sections here. Also, if you skate into a specific spot, you'll fall through the level before being reset, rather than just hitting the kill plane right away. There's some interesting graffiti on this game. Firstly, you can see Bill and Hillary Clinton on Marseille here. I've got no idea why they're there. Also, on Venice once more, we can see some Spider-Man graffiti. Of course, Spidey is also a playable character on the game. On School 2, there's this auditorium building here. Now, back when I played this game on console and on an old TV, it was too pixelated to read what was written on this building. But now we can see that it says David Bollocks Auditorium. Now, if you don't know what bollocks are, well, it's British slang for ballsack. Interestingly, it seems to have been changed on the N64 version to bullocks, so I guess it was censored. Did you ever open the gym on School 2? I mean, I bet you did, but if you're anything like me when I was younger, you might have done it out of luck, not judgment. Accessing the gym actually requires a weird method. When the level begins, you'll hear a school bell ring. So you better hurry your ass off to class and skate down to the open sesame rail as fast as you can. Or at least in time to hear the bell ring for a second time. You have to grind this rail as the bell rings again, and ta-da! The gym will now open its doors and you can go for a swim or something. So we've seen Enema Island and the animal chin ramp on Skate Heaven, but there's a third thing to mention. If you do the blowing out a hole gap like this, it will reveal a secret tunnel that goes between the big and small halfpipes. If you stop in the tunnel and look to one side, you can see the Neversoft logo and the text, "We're watching you." It's pretty dark on the PS1 version, so it can be hard to see. But it's actually a lot lighter on the N64 version, so here you go. Feast your eyes on this eye. Do you remember that annoying golf cart thing on School 2 that mows you down if you come into contact with it? Well, I do. But did you know that Neversoft founder and president Joel Jewett is actually the driver of this golf cart? He's credited as lending his voice to the phrases that the in-game character says when he's stopping you from skating on school grounds, with excessive force. The Bullring level is based on a real-life location called Bullring by the Sea, located in the city of Tijuana, Baja California, Mexico. According to Tony Hawk, it was rented for $1,500 for 2 weeks in 1998. The ramp itself was built in 10 days and the footage was recorded across the other 4. The real-life location can be seen in the intro to Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1. Which is actually taken from a Birdhouse movie called The End. There are at least 2 tricks on the game that involve the skater hitting their groin with the board. There's a sound effect that plays during these tricks. It's the same one as when you skate into a wall or something. Basically, it's the sound of the skater getting hurt. And, well, I guess you are hitting yourself in the crotch, so fair play. The lady skaters like Alyssa Steamer have a different sound that play during these moves. I mean, I guess it would hurt as well, right? The Hangar is a fictional level set in a fictional place, somewhere called Mullet Falls, Montana. Now obviously Montana exists and it's where Joel Jewett, Neversoft president, is from. And back then at least, he sported a mullet haircut. So the location of this level is a reference to Joel, to his hair and where he comes from. During development however, we can see that this level was originally going to be set in Tadjikistan. Here's some footage from a pre-release version of the game that shows the location that the game's devs originally had in mind. On Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2, you can unlock 80s Tony Hawk, a reskin of Tony based on his appearance when he was younger. This skin is also referred to as McSqueeb as well. Anyway, to get 80s Tony, you need to beat 100% of the regular Tony Hawk's career mode. Some sources state that you have to buy all his decks and max out his stats too. And what's the purpose of accessing 80s Tony? Well, this sets us up for our next fact nicely. If you get a gold medal in all competitions with 80s Tony, you'll unlock the Retro Tony Hawk video, which shows Tony Hawk skating when he was younger. Now this video contains what people thought was an Easter egg. Towards the end of the video, Tony is seen celebrating a run and what looks like a UFO takes off in the background. Years later, this mystery would be solved by a combination of Odd Header, Ralph D'Amato and Tony Hawk himself. Odd Header interviewed Ralph and showed him it. In turn, Ralph contacted the Birdman himself, and he sent back a photo with the caption Expo 86. This refers to a World's Fair held in Vancouver in 1986. So the UFO was actually part of some kind of ride at the World's Fair. Whatever the case, sadly it wasn't an actual UFO, although it was unidentified for many years. On School 2 there are two sets of toilets, boys and girls. If you go to either bathroom you can hear someone, let's say, having trouble on the toilet. What's strange is that if you choose a male skater, you'll hear male noises at either bathroom. And if you select a female skater, you'll hear female noises in the bathrooms too. On New York, if you visit the Banks area, you can see a basketball court here. If you manage to grind the top of either basketball hoop, you can make them fall over. Also on School 2, you can do something similar with this lamppost here, but everyone knows about that already. Okay, another School 2 fact for you here as well. On the Nintendo 64 version of the game, there's an extra piece of graffiti over here near the guns rail. It's a logo for the now defunct video game developer Edge of Reality, which was the company responsible for the N64 port of the game. So they've just added their own logo to the game's graffiti, and fair play, I'd probably do the same as well. One slightly more interesting aspect of the N64 port of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 is that it contained an exclusive level. It's the Hoffman Factory, which appeared on Matt Hoffman's Pro BMX. And if you've played that game and thought, wow, I'd love to skate here, well, now you can. Before the game hit the shelves, there were demos released which contained just one or a few levels as a taster of what the final game would offer players. One of these demos offered just Marseille. If you were to try and enter the secret area, you'll be met with a fence and signs that say work in progress. However, there are points you can pick up, like you could on Pro Skater 1, which were removed entirely from the final game. For reference, here's the secret area on the final game too. Earlier in the video, we looked at how you open the gym on School 2. Now we're going to look further into the gym. There's actually an invisible rail that takes you through this wall and onto the Gons rail. What's even stranger is that parts of the level are now unloaded, so it's pretty tricky to stop kissing the rail and get off it. But if you're persistent, you can do it, and we can go and explore. All the areas that are textured seem to coincide with where Joel Jewett in his golf cart rides around. But it's just super weird to see the level looking like this. Another good thing to do while the level is in this state is to try and replicate what I did here. It led to some pretty insane stuff. You might have seen the invisible rail before, but do you know why it's there? Well, my theory is that it's linked to the back doors at the gym. If we go further back in time to when the E3 demo of Pro Skater 2 was the most up-to-date build in existence, we can see that the game's developers originally wanted to open up both sets of doors, so there would have been 2 entrances and exits to the gym. This was perhaps scrapped because it gave the programmers a headache in terms of the loading zones. Also, this may or may not be related, but you can see some of the textures from inside the gym bleeding through the outer walls. For whatever reason, the back doors were culled. If there's one thing I love about the Tony Hawk series of games, it's that there are always these weird and wonderful ports and regional versions of the game. Tony Hawk's 2 received a South Korean release, and it included the members of the K-pop band Finn KL as playable skaters. I'm not even making this up, I'm probably about to butcher these names. But you have Lee Hyo-ri, Ok Joo-hyun, Lee Jin, and Song Yu-ri. They all have 2 costumes as well. The first ones are all black and gold, or do you see blue and black? No, I'm just kidding. And the second outfits are like school uniforms or something. They all have the weirdest bios too. They include the band members' star signs, like I care about those. And apparently they each have nicknames too. Like Chori here, and Ok Kordi, Daigi, and Shil Shil E. Also it lists their blood types. I mean, I guess that's relevant if one of them has a bad bail. I mean, they're probably complete novices, so it could well happen. I also like how Lee's bio just states that she is a vocal leader, while Ok is a lead vocal. Like, just have some consistency at least. They also put some K-pop in the game's soundtrack. Imagine playing Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2. Imagine you're barreling down into the hangar playing as a K-pop artist, listening to K-pop. Because that's where we are right now. To be honest, it's kind of surreal. Maybe I'll see if I can use any of these K-pop tunes without getting demonetized, but if not, I guess you'll enjoy a compilation of K-pop skaters set to something else.
I love it.
One last thing I noticed was that in the pre-made parks there are Finn KL signs around. but like they're the most basic looking signs you've ever seen. They're not branded in any way. My best guess is that they replaced a different texture with this one, but it just looks so slapdash, you know? Anyway, let's try and get over this and focus on something else. So you've all heard of Private Carrera, right? She's an unlockable skater on the game, but did you know that she wasn't in all versions of Tony 2? On the Xbox and Dreamcast versions of the game, she was replaced by a character called Trixie. She has possibly the cringiest bio of all time, so I won't read it all out.
What is this bio? Hot-blooded firecracker Trixie? Oh. Physical pain.
But also, her appearance differs between the Dreamcast and Xbox releases. On the Game Boy Advance release of the game, we got a character called Mindy. I assume this is the same Mindy as we got on the GBA version of Pro Skater 3 as well. On the Game Boy Advance version of the game, there was also an exclusive level called Rooftops. I can't be bothered to play the GBA version, so just enjoy these screenshots. But I will play Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2X to show you some more exclusive levels. Yeah, this is a version of the game that was released as a launch title for the original Xbox. It combines Pro Skater 1 and 2 levels and gives you some exclusive levels as well. So that means manuals on the original Pro Skater 1 levels. Hell yeah. But we're not here to discuss that. Let's do a whistle-stop tour of all the new levels. First up is Club London. A club in London, I guess? It's honestly not a great level. It feels deserted and there's not much flow between the skatable objects. Still, it has an inside and an outside area, and I think there are some grindable objects above the dance floor, but I never really found a way up there in the 2 minutes that I played this level for. Next up is the construction site. This suffers from some of the same issues as Club London, like there being a lack of flow throughout the level, and objects just not being placed so you can combo between them easily. I should say that I believe all the additional 2X levels were all pretty much slated. But I do believe that there are maybe 1 or 2 that are passable. Don't shoot me for saying that. Next is Skate Park, Tampa, Florida. You may well recognise this level from Thug, as it formed part of a bigger Tampa level on that game. It's still cool to play on 2X, and it came as a nostalgic surprise to me when I played this game for the first time. And that was only just for this video as well. But I can't help but think that it would benefit from newer gameplay elements like sticker slaps and levelling out in midair. If you're wondering whether any of the rest of the level is textured out of bounds, well, here are some scenic shots for you. Next we have Subway, and this is one of the levels I actually don't mind playing. It has way better flow, you basically just go from one end to the other and back. There are a lot more skatable objects and they link together better. Ollie the Magic Bum, or the nameless Magic Bum should I say, makes an appearance. And another. And another. And this section with the red light is cool. Just because it looks cool. Last up, we have Skylines. This is another level I really didn't mind when I was researching and recording this video. It was kind of exciting to be jumping between different rooftops. I like the added detail of seeing the building's interiors through skylights and windows. And it flowed okay too. So I guess enjoy these gameplay clips from the level. Aside from having new levels, 2X also introduced some changes to existing levels. For example, on the Hangar, there are some new pipes that you can grind at the start of the level. And even better, there is now a control tower behind the spawn point too. Originally this was just a dead end. Its only purpose being to give you a good roll in to the rest of the level. You can also jump out of the windows in the control tower, down to some brand new scenery below. Also, if we come out to the secret area, we can see more of the extended scenery. There's an aeroplane and a truck. Lastly, if we open up the other secret area, the wind tunnel, we can actually see Officer Dick standing in some kind of control room or viewing platform. On the 2X version of Skate Heaven, there's this weird new spherical structure. It's like semi-skatable. And I've seen other videos on YouTube of people skating it better than I am here. Some of the biggest changes made to a level was Chopper Drop, which has now been renamed Crane Drop. Of course that means that there's no chopper anymore, and it's been replaced by a crane holding a piece of pipe. But what's more interesting is that there are a load of platforms out in the water now. On the original Pro Skater 2, this area didn't really serve a purpose, so this is likely an attempt to make this level more than just a halfpipe. On Venice there is some new graffiti. Most notably, there's this graffiti here which reads, "All your base are belong to us." If you experienced the golden era of the internet like I did, then this may ring a bell as a meme from the early 2000s. It's a reference to the game Zero Wing, where this phrase was badly translated from Japanese to English and people went crazy for it. Okay, so before we looked at the Tampa level, but there's actually an Easter egg kind of thing on it which we didn't show before. If you manage to make it onto the roof above the skate park, you can find what seems to be a dog on a sunbed watching TV. Going back to the E3 beta of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2, most if not all the level photos were different back then. Bear in mind though that not all the levels were accessible, or at least featured on the level select screen. School 2 originally showed a photo of what seems to be a different school altogether. On the E3 demo we can see a harbour setting with boats, whereas on the final game, on Marseille, we get a shot of the skate park itself. For New York we get a shot of what I believe is the Brooklyn Bridge. Don't hate me if I'm wrong, I'm English and I have never been to New York. On the final game we get a different shot of what I also think is the Brooklyn Bridge, as we can actually see the Twin Towers in the background there. For Skatestreet Ventura, there's just an image of the name Skatestreet. On the final game this was changed to an image of the park itself. Philly is an interesting one, as on the E3 beta it shows a photo of the Philadelphia City Hall, which doesn't feature on the actual level. On the final game it shows a wider shot of more buildings in the city. As we saw earlier with the gym on School 2, the levels on the E3 beta contain differences to the same levels on the final game. For example, there was originally no helicopter on Chopper Drop yet, although it's likely that it simply wasn't implemented yet. Also, the feet gaps that can be obtained by launching onto the pontoon in the water could also originally be hit by simply getting big air off the halfpipe itself. I assume this was removed because it made the gaps too easy to get, as well as them being repetitive and even annoying. On Skate Heaven, certain areas of the level were far from finished. Most notably, there's the playground over here which looks insanely unfinished. Also, there's a gap, which was just called Gap. Then there's the secret area, otherwise known as Enema Island, as we saw earlier. Some of the textures aren't yet complete, like the section where you exit the secret area and go back to the main level. It's not even functional either, so you can't actually get out of the secret area once you're here. You have to reset. And there's some crazy shenanigans going on with the textures on the halfpipes. I don't even know how to describe what's going on, but it looks really cool. There's no Neversoft Easter egg yet either. Okay, let's revisit School 2 on the E3 beta. There's more to this level than the gym. There were originally 8 hall passes to collect, while in the final game these were reduced to 5. Earlier in the video we saw the TC's roof gap. Back on the E3 demo, that same gap was called the Lil Shorty roof gap. TC's roof was actually this gap between these two buildings. In the final game, this gap was named the Crazy Roof Gap. There was this support structure for the awning near spawn, and the kicker to get up there was missing, making it much harder to reach the awning up there. Overall, there were more bushes around the level, and there were also these spinny things on the roofs. Probably just like extra ventilation or aircon or something. Between these two buildings, the rails were broken and steam was emitting from one of them. In the final game, the pipes were fixed. There's a dumpster between these two rails here. And perhaps the strangest thing was the hidden tape. To make it appear, yep, you had to make it appear, you had to destroy the spinny thing on this roof. Then the tape would spawn in the secret area. Jesus. The hangar, on the other hand, was barely started. So I mean, pretty much everything is different in some way. But let's go through some of the notable things. The wind tunnel originally had a kill plane when you opened it, so you had to wait for the propeller to stop spinning before you could enter. Also, instead of the secret area we got on the final game, which we saw earlier, we would have had an observation deck instead. The section that divides the two halves of the level was originally somewhat bigger. Lastly, there were some interesting signs around which were likely just placeholders for the time being. One was for a fictional company called Delbonics Airlines, which says, "We loves us some flying, and it be showing like a mother." You guys will have to imagine what the rest of that word might be. The other one says, "AA Alcoholics Anonymous, come hick with us." Okay, New York now. There's a scream sound effect that plays sometimes on the level. I believe it is in the final game, but it used to be way louder, and it was toned down a lot on the final game. It genuinely sounds awful, like Jesus Christ, man. Also, the subway opens differently. On the final game, you have to collect all the subway tokens, but you used to have to simply go to the entrance and the gate would open. And you need to get on the rails to do the Ride the Rails goal. But originally the game designers intended you to collect the subway tokens for the Ride the Rails goal instead. There was no goal for actually riding the rails. There was also a passageway behind the pit here, and Joey's sculpture was split into 3 pieces originally. And to get the goal relating to it, you had to grind all 3 sections. Oh, and you can fall down this hole here. The base of the statue was a grind, not a launcher. So I guess there was no pigeon pudding gap at this stage of development. And there's this weird pillar thing here. I have no idea what this is. On Skatestreet Ventura, the way you opened up the secret area was originally a little different. For the rail secret area, you had to grind this rail, but instead of getting a gap, you could hear the crowd cheer instead. But wait a second, this method was to unlock the van secret area on the final game, not the rail secret area. So actually, this method was switched around at some point. For the van secret area, it's totally different. On the final game, you unlocked it by grinding the rail we saw a moment ago. But on the E3 demo, you unlocked the van secret area by getting the up, up and away gaps like this. Also in this secret area, you can see a point pickup, which was something that was included in Tony Hawk's 1, but not in 2. But the game designers were still considering adding them in while the game was partway through development, as we saw with Marseille earlier. On Philly, there weren't that many differences. One of the main things to talk about is the draining of the fountain. The first time I got up to the balcony, I was like, where are the things that you need to skate through? But after actually watching my own footage back, I realised that they were up on the wall, so you can drain the fountain after all. Also, there's no way up to this balcony and then onto the wire you need to grind to open up the FDR skate park area. Instead, all you need to do is pick up the cash icon near the park on career mode, and then the area opens up. Easy. Okay, Beta Bullring, here we go. This is another level that was really unfinished at this point in development. Like there's untextured bull poo, for example. And the bull itself has no legs. Also, the term bull plant doesn't seem to have been invented yet. But generally, it's just in a pretty unfinished state. Okay, last of all in the video, we have the sign on Philly. In real life, this is the Love statue, or the Love sculpture, as this area is Love Park. On Tony Hawk's 2 though, the letters LOVE have been replaced with THPS. On Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2X, it was changed to read TH2X instead. And that wraps up the 50 things, guys. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching as always, and look out for more in the future.